Alrighty guys, so this is the Viltrox 0.71x Speedbooster for the Canon C70 and the RED Komodo, I believe. It's actually significantly cheaper than the Canon alternative, like 2.5 times cheaper, but the question is, and I know you're gonna ask this, is it worth 2.5 times less or not? How's it going, guys? My name is Andrew Murphy from Down Under in Gold Coast, Australia. Alrighty, so first things first, let's just get the whole Speedbooster spiel out of the way, because I know a lot of people, especially that I talk to anyway, they're not quite sure what a Speedbooster actually does. So let's break it down real quick, make it super simple for you guys. So the general idea is that if you are using full frame lenses, like say this 24-105 EF lens, this is a full frame lens, and you're using it on a camera that has a smaller sensor than a full frame. So it would be a crop sensor or a micro four thirds or anything that's smaller than full frame. Essentially, there's gonna be light or stray light around the edges that isn't actually hitting the sensor. And that is because these lenses are designed to cover a full frame sensor with all the light that's coming in. So then some clever dude at some point realized that you could probably harness this extra light that's not actually hitting the sensor, and that is where speed boosters were born. So what a speed booster does is it basically is a magnifying glass, so it magnifies the light in so it all hits the sensor. And the benefit of that is that you get, on this one anyway, you get an extra stop of light. So this f4 lens now becomes an f2.8, which is amazing. And then the other benefit is because you're magnifying, you can get a wider field of view. So this 24-105 now turns into a 17-74 millimeter. All right, so hopefully that has kind of explained it in a bit of an easier way for you to understand. But essentially think about a speed booster like a magnifying glass for your sensor. So now how does it actually affect lenses that you put in your camera? So this right here is the Canon EF 24-105 f4L. I've been using this lens for freaking ever. It is so like battered and bruised and there's sand in it, and it's just a bloody workhorse. But it's a really good lens because it has image stabilization in it, and 24-105 is actually a really good focal length. But because I mainly shoot on the Canon C70, which has a super 35mm sensor, which is a smaller sensor than a full frame sensor, I don't get to utilize the full field of view and the full focal length on this lens. Now, in comes Viltrox Speedbooster, and you adapt, well, let's actually attach it so you can see what it looks like. So now we attach the Viltrox Speedbooster onto the lens, and essentially what this is doing is it's changing this lens for the C70 camera. So the 24-105 now becomes a 17-75, like because of that crop on the Canon C70, because it's a 1.5 times crop. And then the f4 maximum or minimum aperture now becomes an f2.8. So essentially we are gaining an extra stop of light by using this speed booster on this lens with the Canon C70, and we're also getting that full frame equivalent field of view. So obviously on a crop sensored camera, a 17mm times 1.5 would be about a 24mm sort of thing. So the 24mm full frame equivalent is a 17mm on a super 35mm sensor. But the best part about this adapter, and that some cheaper adapters don't actually offer, is that it has EXIF or EXIF transmission, which means that all your data coming from your lens actually gets transmitted to your camera. So now it actually says 17mm, and if I zoom in, we got 74mm, that's at 105. And then also down here, if I block that a bit, it has f2.8 as well. And again, I can adjust it just like a normal lens. Actually, I wonder if it drops the, yeah, so f16 instead of f22 as well. So regardless of whether you understand how the whole speed booster situation works, once you throw it on the camera, it gives you all the correct data. So you don't even really need to understand what the conversion is, because it tells you right there. And what is super interesting about this speed booster is that obviously you are gaining an extra stop of light, but you technically aren't gaining more depth of field. Even though the f-stop number is going from say like f4 to f2, or in this case on this 16-35mm f2.8, we've gone from f2.8 to f2, you technically aren't gaining more depth of field. However, keeping that in mind, a cool thing that you can do is that obviously because you are getting a wider field of view, ignore all the mess and stuff in my office right now, but if we zoom in, so let's go to, I don't know, somewhere around here. Look at the depth of field right now, like in this framing. So this is with the speed booster on. Now, if I change to having no speed booster on and do the exact same framing, watch what happens. So now this is with no speed booster on. I do have to adjust the settings slightly to counteract for not having the extra stop of light. But look at the depth of field now. So it actually is less, but not because of the extra stop of light or because the f-stop's gone down. It's because we get a wider field of view, and when you zoom in, it amplifies the depth of field. So where this is actually really cool, where you can actually utilize this, is that if you are shooting in a small environment and you want more separation from the background, then throw this on your lens and zoom in more, and then you'll get that depth of field compression rather than just like being limited to what the lowest f-stop is on the lens that you're shooting on. All right, so vignetting now, you can already see in the sky with this speed booster on that we've got a decent amount of vignetting. So this is wide open at 24 millimeters. This is a full frame lens, so technically there shouldn't be any vignetting. I don't have any filters on the front, but you can clearly see in the sky that there is quite a decent amount of vignetting on the edges. You might as well also be able to see like a bit of distortion. There's not really anything straight here to look at, but now I'm just blubbing. And so this is currently a 17 millimeter lens because we are getting that, it's like a 0.71 times, so I guess it's like a full frame equivalent. So now this is at 105 mil, but with the speed booster on. So we're currently at a 74 mil, I believe. So essentially, if you think about it, it's kind of like having a 105 mil equivalent on a full frame camera. So that's kind of, I should have brought the R6 and we could have done a side by side between full frame and, but yeah, so this is with the speed booster on. Now let me swap to having no speed booster and I'll show you what the focal length difference is going to be. So now this is with the exact same setup, but now we don't have the speed booster on. So this is going to be the 24 mil equivalent on, I guess, super 35 mil sensor. So you can see the difference. It's quite a bit tighter compared to having the speed booster on. And the distortion shouldn't be as noticeable as well. So that is something to keep in mind. So now this is at 105 mil without a speed booster. So again, the crop is going to be a little bit tighter. You're going to get a little bit more range out of it. But what does it look like in comparison to like having the speed booster on? Is the distortion not as noticeable? What does it look like? I did notice when you zoomed all the way out, door frames and stuff seemed to, I don't know, it looked like it was distorting, but I wasn't 100% sure. Again, we'll have to throw it into a computer and see like how straight those vertical lines are. But yeah, is it noticeable? Does it look any different? So Jason just raised a very good point in that it doesn't have weather sealing. So I'm assuming, I can't remember too much if the Canon one had weather sealing or not. But yeah, no gaskets is the main telltale sign that it is not weather sealed. So if you are planning on using this in not so favorable conditions, then Canon option, if it is weather sealed, would be the better option for you over this one. Or just buy some gaskets and shitty rig it. Now in terms of autofocus, it actually works really, really good. Like this is with it on right now. So if we zoom in, I kind of move around a bit. The face detection works really, really good, just like if you were just using a normal EF to RF adapter. And the cool thing as well is I'm pretty sure you get the same, I guess, like autofocus area as just using a normal adapter as well. I know that when the Canon adapter first came out, it was kind of like limited to only the like a little square in the middle, but this you get the, seems like you get the full field of view with it as well. And the tracking is just like, it is absolutely killing it. Just grabbing my face, moving around, making sure I'm always in focus. So yeah, autofocus works good. One of the main benefits for me anyway is that I love this lens. So this is the Canon 24-105 f4L. Amazing lens, has image stabilization. So for like documentary run and gun shooting, absolutely amazing. The only downside is that it's only f4. And you'll find that a lot of lenses, zoom lenses anyway, that have optical stabilization don't go below f4 really, unless they're extremely expensive. So now being able to adapt this and make it an f2.8 lens means that it's amazing in low light, having the extra stop of light, and obviously having that image stabilization, and now a wider field of view as well, just makes it like the perfect lens for this camera anyway. Like, you know as well, like Jason and I use this to shoot majority of my YouTube content, like BTS stuff, on location because yeah, it's got that image stabilization and it's just super easy to use. and decent autofocus with this lens as well. So another thing I noticed with the Viltrox Speedbooster is the barrel distortion. So as soon as I threw it on my Canon C70, I went to walk out of my studio, and I've obviously got a door coming into my studio, and I noticed that the door was slightly bowed. And then ever since then, I've always seen everything as being slightly bowed. It's only like very, very slight. I'm not sure if a lot of people would notice it, but it is something to keep in mind if you are going to get this. I'm pretty sure the Canon one doesn't have any sort of barrel distortion. I'm pretty sure, like, obviously the optical quality and the build quality and everything of the Canon one is going to be much higher. But the real question is it worth 2.5 times more than the Viltrox one? Another really cool thing is that up here you can see this little micro USB port. There it is there. And basically this is used to upgrade the firmware on the actual Speedbooster itself. So it will allow you eventually to be able to use this with more lenses and to obviously like send all that EXIF data between the camera and the lens. Now overall, I'm actually a big fan of this, mainly because the Canon one is just, I think it's pretty expensive for what you get and the kind of like uses that you can use it for. I would love to have it in my kit in case I need to go slightly wider or something. And I have actually shot recently at a concert where we need to go even wider, and the Viltrox Speedbooster came in super handy so we could get everything in the frame. But I don't use it that much. So obviously spending $1,000 plus Australian on the Canon version of this for it to just kind of like sit in your bag and not really do much because I wouldn't use it all the time is kind of, I know it's not the biggest or the best investment for me. Whereas this, obviously it's only what, $279 US, so what's that, about 380, 400 Australian dollars. For like 2.5 times less, you can get this and still buy another lens or do something else with the extra money that you're saving, and you still get most of the benefits of having a Speedbooster. But anyway guys, if you did enjoy this review, then consider liking and subscribing, and if you want to find out more about the Viltrox Speedbooster, I'll leave some links down below. Otherwise, stay creative and just be you. I don't know what this hand was doing this then. It's been a while since I've filmed, so yeah, have fun.